I'm going to tell a real quick story, a Christmas story. It goes kind of like this. Imagine being nomadic tribespeople traveling back and forth across Eurasia. And the leader of these tribespeople were medicine men or shaman or whatever you want to call them, or let's just call him Santa Claus in this case. So, Santa. During the 3 days that the sun dies on the cross of the zodiac during the winter solstice, the shaman would ride off into the forest, and he would go into the conifer tree line, the Christmas tree line, and he would look around the base of the Christmas tree for these particular little gifts, these presents. Their first stage of growth, they look like this, which is an Easter egg, or the the first growth cycle. There are many different colors. Excuse me. There's many different colors and kinds. There's Amanita pantherus, Amanita muscaria. There's psilocybin mushrooms. There's cubensis mushrooms. There's box tops and liberty caps and all kinds of different colored mushrooms. And these are usually symbolized as bulbs in the winter hanging on the tree, or little eggs in a basket collected by the children under the base of the trees during Easter. This next symbol here is the phallic symbol. Sometimes it was referred to as the atom, as this was a female symbol. This is a masculine symbol here. And this that breaks away underneath the mushroom, this is called the Eve, and this is the top part, the phallic symbol there, the Adam and the Eve there. That's just one little story that goes along with it. But these mushrooms grow symbiotically with the forest. They deliver nutrients amongst the forest through the mycelium, through a network of mycelium. I think often when you see the tree of life, you see these tree above and then this web below. It's not only the root system, I think they're referring to the mycelium. These often popped up in rings around the base of the trees. I think one of the biggest ring of these mushrooms, mycelial patch, grows around Stonehenge, but they pop up in the early morning while before the sun rises, while the Earth's going through its pre-dawn electromagnetic induction. They have a tendency to pop up out of the ground while there's ionization occurring in the sky and the dew's falling, feeding everything. It just so happens that the mathematical algorithms that these things travel through to feed the nutrients in the forest just kind of happen to be the same as the Apple computers that we use, or the fruits of knowledge that we use, or the computers, the internet, I should say. According to Paul Stement, he's found that research, and he believes it's some kind of evolution. But this I find interesting. This is the third stage of the mushroom. Bird baths, fountains found all over the world are designed after these. I believe that this is what they call the Holy Grail, the cup, the body, the blood of the Christos. And what I mean by that is this up here, especially in the Amanitas, which are a big burning bright red colored mushroom with these speckled little caps. There's another growth stage in here where it flattens out, and it's called the table. And when you consider, I'm going to get to it here in a second, it's called the tabletop or the cross top. I forgot to draw that in. This is something I drew up for somebody earlier when I was talking to him. I thought I would share it. This is, I believe, the Holy Grail. These turn up like this, and they have a tendency to turn gold. So you have this chalice. A lot of our early designs for cups and stuff, king's cups, are designed after this thing here. And it would collect that morning dew that I was talking about in here, and the pigment from the top of the mushroom would turn it blood red. And you can pick this out in the forest and get down on one knee and pluck that and drink from that and consume it. I've talked about in some other videos how Vikings, and in particular, it's kind of arbitrary, but there's no evidence it was eaten, but the Templars were eating these and stuff. Because I'm telling you, you ingest certain amounts of these, and sometimes you see geometry everywhere, like waves of it, and it gives you this false confidence, but it does some things to your eyes too. It makes your vision more acute and your edge perception more acute. And I just think when you're fighting and stuff, it would give you this confidence. You'd be filled with this mana, that this holy manna that used to pop up every morning. And I think it's interesting that if you read Exodus, Moses used to have them go out and collect these little things while the dew was falling, and they substitute it for food, which lots of different mushrooms are good for you. You can survive on them temporarily, I suppose. If you're wandering through the desert, there's some that grow in the desert that are called desert truffles, or they look like a loaf of bread. But there's also psychedelic mushrooms that would be growing in the midbar, in the cow manure, and such like that. And that's perhaps why when the kids would bring the Easter basket back, they get inspected and sorted out before the kids get to take what their share. So this psychedelic mushroom here is usually associated with the Amanita muscaria, which tends to give one, if you study shamanism, it gives one an out-of-body experience, or this symptom of this feeling of death or dying, and then a rebirth. Sort of like, if you eat from that tree, you must surely die, but you don't die. You kind of come back with a different perspective. I've never actually ingested that particular one. You can also find these things, they grow out of the holy elephant excrement, and out of the holy cow's excrement, and they grow in these things called fairy rings in the forest. So I'm going to go here, skip to here. We got the trees, symbiotic growth. These are the evergreens, represent fertility throughout the year, which is significant. So you have these shaman that leave. They go out they go out to go hunt these things. And they leave the village with their caribou, pulling their sleigh. And they're dressed in their traditional colors, which would be red and white, looking like Santa Claus, maybe perhaps having a long beard. And they go out, they detach their lead reindeer. They use the reindeer much like a pig would hunt truffles. Reindeers will hunt these mushrooms around the base of the conifer trees. And essentially, sometimes I suppose his nose would get chapped from digging through the snow, so Rudolph, the lead reindeer, the hunting reindeer, would get a chapped nose. And often, the shaman would put the mushrooms up into this tree, essentially decorating it, and trying to keep these mushrooms, away from the reindeer, because if one reindeer, Rudolph, were to ingest a mushroom, and let's say perhaps he ate a couple of them, not enough to actually intoxicate him, but he went over and urinated into the snow, and the other reindeer would force him out of the way and eat that yellow snow, they would become intoxicated and be prancing and dancing and dashing around, proverbial flying reindeer. And unfortunately, Rudolph, being butted out of the way and not having the toxicated effects in his body because it hasn't gone through his liver and through a decarboxylation process and recycled out of his urine, he gets butted out of the way. The other reindeer get his urine. They get to fly and dance and prance around, so he's left out of the reindeer games. So these mushrooms need to be dried out, so he finds a tree facing the sun. I think that's traditionally why we wind up putting our Christmas trees in the window. So when you decorate your Christmas tree, just consider that a blue one could be a psilocybe mushroom, a red and white one could be an Amanita muscaria. When you put a gold one, perhaps that's a box top or a cubensis mushroom, or when you put a silver bulb on your tree, it represents a liberty cap. And maybe a black or a purple bulb would represent the Pantherus amanita. The Amanita muscaria, translated from Latin, means the mushroom of humanity. This tinsel that we run up the tree to the star of enlightenment, which represents enlightenment, actually this pentagram represents tons and tons of stuff if you study Pythagorean theories and sacred geometry, and the golden means and the golden rectangle and all that stuff in pi. But this tinsel that we would wrap up the tree, the gold and the silver would represent the DNA. It's kind of hard to explain, but this is what I believe. Let me start another video. I'm at 10 minutes, and I'm going to take it off from right there.